So the whole Concord situation is super messed up for a million reasons. For Sony, for the $400 million that the game cost. Yes, you didn't hear me wrong there. But I also think that it actually explains a lot about the gaming industry and exactly why certain things happen the way they do, especially with Call of Duty, which is now owned by Microsoft, the opposition to Sony, which we will get into in a minute. But first, let me show you the video that we're watching today. I'm gonna give you the answer, and then I want you to listen to the rest of this video. And then I'm going to explain why that answer is correct. One of the questions that we get more in Call of Duty than anything else is, why are all of the games Black Ops and Modern Warfare? Listen. So this is a video by Mr. Matty Plays. He is someone that I used to watch all of the time for like Fallout, Skyrim news, things along those lines. And now he's just kind of like an overall games journalist doing reviews and things like that. But this video is titled "The Concord Situation Just Got Way Worse." And I think you'll see how this plays into the overall games industry once he starts talking about it. I haven't watched his full video, but I've seen other people's videos and I think he's a pretty trusted source. So let's get into it.
Everybody, it is Maddie here today, and we are gathering once more to speak about Concord. I didn't think we had any videos left in us here, but
it's been in the news like crazy.
So much more worse than anybody could have imagined, right? It already came down to how character design killed a video game. It was that simple,
part of it.
And it was one of the most magnificent flops we've ever witnessed in gaming history. No exaggeration. Well, it turns out the Concord situation is a million times worse, 400 million times worse than
so this is the news that I was talking about before. So first of all, I don't think it's fair to say that the only reason why this game failed was because of the character design. I also think it's because people were just not looking for a hero shooter, and that was a big part of it. But yeah, this game cost $400 million over 8 years. I want you to remember that number as we go through this. Remember, think about it, note in your head. There's an important reason why I say that.
Ever imagined. When Colin first shared this information with the Last Stand staff and I saw this, I was like, oh my word. I could not believe what I was seeing. And then he shared this information over on the Sacred Symbols podcast, where good God Almighty has it gone viral. So of course, please check out Sacred Symbols. Colin's a good friend of mine, and we're here to talk about Concord once more, where it's obviously been a bumpy ride for the game. We already know that. The beta did horrible when it came to the player count. Then the full release was not good either. They shut down the game a week later. Now the director of Concord has left the studio.
Yeah, the studio's done.
Firewalk is in question right now. And after all of this, we learned that this game may have cost $400 million.
Dollar dues.
Fun fact about all of this, included in that episode of Sacred Symbols, this
just to be clear as well, I've also heard things that it actually may have been a lot more than $400 million, which actually probably plays into the things that had not yet come out. Like, for example, they were supposed to have weekly cutscenes come out. I happen to know that those cutscenes, if they're like longer than a minute, cost more than like $1 million if they're high quality, like well more. So that's probably where a big portion of like the after launch, because those are supposed to come out weekly. So let's say they cost $1 million. We'll just say $1 million. 52 weeks in a year, that is $52 million alone. So
this does not include the purchasing price for Firewalk Studios. So that's another,
there's that.
I assume, millions of dollars that PlayStation threw out for this game. And wait till you hear the rationale, the reasoning behind this decision making. It's unbelievable. And it's been a bit of a bumpy ride in general for PlayStation as of late. A lot of up and downs. You have Astrobot doing really well. You have this Concord situation. You also have the PS5 Pro situation, where a lot of people aren't happy with that price tag. But you know what? Why are people focused on the PS5 Pro when you can get yourself a nice PC? Am I right? You know what? Let's talk about a couple of PCs, shall we? As this generation progresses on, it's become more and more important for a lot of people to invest their money in hardware that they're going to get a lot of good performance out of, but for great value. Many people aren't ready to make that jump to PC, but I think Apex is making it really easy with some of their pre-built options here that give you great bang for your buck. And keep in mind, as we go along here, I got a great discount code for you. Plus, you can finance all of these PCs.
Well, then they get expensive.
pay as you go along if that's what works for your financial situation. They have the Apex Bronze, Apex Streamer, and Apex Streamer Plus. I'm going to focus here on the Apex Streamer, which finds itself in the middle of the two when it comes to value, because I think a lot of stuff that's packed in here is pretty good, between its CPU being a Ryzen 7 5700X 8-core at 3.8 gigahertz per core. You also have 32 gigs of RAM, an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4060, 1 terabyte SSD. Like, you got everything you need to get going in PC gaming. And when you keep in mind that if you go to the link in the description down below and use code Maddie, you get 10% off, or up until September 30th, if you use the code We Love Our Partners, you'll get 20% off. So if you're looking for a great PC,
20% off of PC is actually pretty insane. I need a PC sponsor.
with even better value, head to the link down below, use the code We Love Our Partners, get 20% off, or use code Maddie, get 10% off. You know, whatever amount of money you want to save, right? All right, so let's get into this budget here. You know, gaming budgets are weirdly hidden away unless you like dig into GDC archives, or of course there's a massive leak of sorts, which has helped us out a lot in this particular instance, because with Colin saying that it was $400 million to make Concord, with a thorough breakdown of how that money was spent, we can then compare it to budgets we have learned about PlayStation Studios games like The Last of Us Part 2, which are two budgets we have learned about PlayStation Studios.
This clip right here, so this is a tweet. So this clip has been on multiple people's videos, including like Asmongold, this video, Maddie's video, but just on Twitter alone, it has 4.3 million views. Keep in mind, this game had like 100 concurrent players when it came out. More people know about the news of Concord than actually, I bet you if you ask any of those people watching what one of the weapons or even characters in the game were, you couldn't name them.
Studios games like The Last of Us Part 2, which cost $220 million. And I'm with a lot of people. I'm not a crazy fan of the story, but the gameplay, the motion capture, the graphics, the lighting, everything. That game is beautiful and fun to play. And so, yeah, if that game's cheaper than Concord, that's saying something. Horizon Forbidden West falls in the $212 million pocket, and that had around 300 employees. 5 years of development time. Then you had Spider-Man 2, which falls in the $300 million to $315 million bucket.
That's more than I would have thought.
Sense. We're talking about Spider-Man, where the first one sold over 20 million copies. So yeah, PlayStation got a lot of money out of that, even with the split between Marvel or Disney and themselves. There was a lot of money to be made there. But you'll see all of these are quality games that had shorter development times and completely undercut the $400 million spent on Concord. And what's really interesting is, for those who don't know, Concord was being concepted and developed.
Did he say 4-year development time on those?
For 8 years in total. So it wasn't just 4 years of straight development, but think about it. This began in 2016. That kind of shows, because
Vale, there's a character.
The Galaxy era, really.
Didn't know
so
that.
It makes a lot of sense where this character design came from. But what's more interesting is when Colin started to break down the timeline in this episode of Sacred Symbols, where he talks about how the game had hit alpha in Q1 2023, which means it had a little bit over a year to go through alpha, beta, and then launch, boom, full release. Now, what's also interesting is that was a reasonable amount of time mark. So they hit that, which was probably the original set budget of the game. It was not going anywhere fast at all. And so they had to spend more money to get this thing out the door, because they believed in it so much, which is the most fascinating part about this. Believe it or not, like,
I wonder, there's more to that if they don't get into it.
Behind this is what's most fascinating to me. I've seen plenty of companies in my day spend stupid amount of money that they will just blink away and not even think much about it, because they have that much in the bank account. But wait till you see the reasoning. Anyway, they hit out.
So this is where the whole tie-in with Call of Duty starts to unfold, and you'll see I probably won't be able to talk about it until the very end of the video, but the tie-in is huge, and what it means for Call of Duty moving forward is even bigger. But again, I want to let this play out, and then I can explain how that kind of crossover and link actually works.
Q1 2023, right? $200 million pretty much out there. Then they spend another $200 million to get it across the finish line by outsourcing the game. Now, outsourcing games is not uncommon at all, especially in AAA development. This is really what gets all of them over the hump. Like, you have a core development team, and then you send this out to separate studios that kind of refine and finish.
One of the reasons why Call of Duty can do their games as fast as they can with the quality that they can is their outsourcing is actually their own studios. So Raven, who else? Demonware, like all of these like little studios, that they have that helps support the Call of Duty games is their outsourcing, and they're all in-house, which means there's more control over it, which honestly is a really, really smart move, but it does cause some problems. We will get into that.
But the reasoning, like I've said, the reasoning is just incredible. It's incredible. So this was touted as the next Star Wars,
which is
yeah, the next Star Wars. We'll talk about that. But also, shockingly, the future of PlayStation. Look, I think PlayStation, among all these platform holders, have made some pretty brain dead decisions. But
yes,
to say that this is the future of PlayStation,
especially with the IPs that freaking PlayStation has.
Listen to your audience. I hate to be that guy, but do you not listen to your audience? Bloodborne remaster? I'm not saying that's going to make as much as a brand
Last
new
of Us
AAA game for PlayStation, like a new IP. But do you not know what made you all so fantastic through the PS4 generation? It's right there in front of you with Astrobot. It's really cool,
I don't agree with the Astrobot one.
Exclusives. And I look at something like Bloodborne, I'm like, it would have been cheaper to make this.
Don't get me wrong, it's incredible,
way
but
more, and you would have made your fans way happier. I don't get this mindset where the companies think they know much more than the consumer. Like, we're deciding what we like, you use that data. And when you see how much live service games are making, like some stats came out for Diablo 4 where it made a stupid amount of money, it's why live service isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You're still gonna.
Okay, let's get into it here. So this is Steam charts. This shows the amount of users per game. I just want to have a look in the top, let's go 20 games. How many of them are live service? So I guess Counter-Strike and PUBG, you would definitely say are live service. Dota is live service. This banana game, maybe. Black Myth Wukong, no. The Blade Point, I have no idea. Apex Legends live service, Grand Theft Auto 5 live service, Wallpaper Engine, no. Same with Source. Deadlock, yes. I don't know about Satisfactory. Rust, yes. Once Human, I don't know. War Thunder, yes. Baldur's Gate, no. Team Fortress 2, yes. So I would say over half of the top. Also, Stardew Valley, goated game. Fact that it's in the top 20 makes me happy. But yeah, a lot of these, probably about half, if not more, are live service games, raking in tons and tons of money. Going back to what Maddie was saying there, is these companies think that they know what consumers want more than what the consumers want. And I think in the case of a lot of games, that is actually not true. I think a lot of companies know what the consumers want more than what the consumers want. And that sucks. That is a bad thing, especially for Call of Duty. If you wonder, I'm gonna give you the answer, and then I want you to listen to the rest of this video, and then I'm going to explain why that answer is correct. One of the questions that we get more in Call of Duty than anything else is, why are all of the games Black Ops and Modern Warfare? Listen.
Going to see PlayStation attempt live service, even though I don't think it's a well-advised move. But PlayStation's fans, I think, are a particular breed in that they like the third-person, over-the-shoulder, open-world games. And of course, Astrobot is a great 3D platformer, and you have JRPGs on PlayStation that really have a home there. Like, they're known for a lot of things, but live service shooters is certainly not one of them. And so to tout that, the absolute opposite of what you're known for as the future of PlayStation, is the very definition of a sunk cost fallacy. Like, they have spent so much on this, they just have to get out the door. And on one business angle, I get it, right? You've spent so much, you may as well get some ROI. But I think now PlayStation would look at when they hit that first 200 million mark, the game was in alpha, you just cancel it there. But what's funny is when they got to that point, they bought the studio.
I can't believe the 200 million. Oh, I didn't know that.
And this is why the rumors of Jim Ryan kind of getting pushed out of the team at PlayStation makes a lot more sense, because this was a move by him, but then Herman Hulst was said to champion this. And that I also believe, because I look at how Horizon is treated now. And for those who don't know, Herman Hulst was a co-founder of Guerrilla Games, the developers of the Horizon series. And you look at how much Horizon we're getting, which I think is a fun series. I really like Zero Dawn.
I don't think it's,
I played very little
I think it's
of Forbidden
a fun
West,
series, but I don't think it's
when
like...
you're seeing how we're potentially getting a remaster, and we're hearing about a co-op game, and there's so many, there's a Lego Horizon game. Like, there's so much Horizon going on. I don't know if I'm just like in the dark here on how much people love it, but I was very surprised to see how much it is. But then you realize the head of PlayStation was originally a co-founder of Guerrilla Games, so he may have their best interest at heart.
Or he might have some shares in that company as well.
You can really feel that sway. So he championed this game, and we're seeing the outcome of it. And if that is true, that is a pretty big bruise to wear. Then the last leg of this is something extremely common in game development, and I'll talk about my own story with this here, is that apparently there was a level of toxic positivity around Concord. You really couldn't say anything negative about this game internally. You couldn't be critical of it to help improve it.
Which is so dumb.
And as a game developer, I get this. I actually went through this whole...
So this is a part of the Call of Duty thing. Toxic positivity. So, oh man. There are channels on YouTube that just rip apart Call of Duty. They do it because it gets views and it's not helpful at all. And then there are channels that are relentlessly positive about Call of Duty because they think it'll get them invited to events and things like that. And then there's people like me, and I would say most of the other big Call of Duty YouTubers who are kind of somewhere in between that, where they say what's wrong with the game and they say what needs to be fixed, and they're very upfront about it. And they do it because they want the game to be better. If you can't do that, and you can't say, listen, this part sucks, this part's broken, it needs to be fixed, this is what happens. Nothing is good because there's no improvement whatsoever, and you just think everything is great. If you're a developer on that game, and every time you go to your boss and bring them a character design, bring them a weapon design, bring them something like that, they say, oh, this is fantastic. Come on. Like what? Can I just draw a stick drawing and bring it to you and be like, perfect? It probably would have done better than Concord if they did that.
Process with our MVP, which is something that Colin also talks about with Concord here. I distinctly remember when we first started to share this thing around, this is my first time exposing something my team and I had worked on to other people. And in particular, someone who's writing the game, I'm learning as I go. I sent it around. Some people were pretty critical of my writing in the game, and some of it did come across extremely harsh, and I did get into my feelings a little bit over it. I felt a bit hurt about it, but what I realized after that process was done, after the emotions got out of the way,
also, I would love to write
number
again.
One, a way better writer now. I know what the player's looking for, and you can only learn so much by seeing rather than doing, and then getting very important critical feedback. But the other thing is, it would have been very easy for me to say, like, hey, be nice about this, and just not hear the hard truth about it, which is like, this scene could have been done way better, Matt. Way better. Here's why. And you have to take that into account. So when you get into a game development environment, it's very important to have a critical focus on your product. Be aware of its biggest weaknesses. When you remove that, you remove any ability to sell it to someone.
100%.
And I think that's the toughest part for people to get over. I think there's a way to deliver criticism on a video game you are making without being an asshole. That's something I've talked about personally in the past, where I've had experiences where people were just straight up rude about things, and you still take the criticism into account. You wish they were a little bit nicer about it, but you still take the criticism into account. But yeah, like, you need that sort of critique internally before
Part
you
of me
start to
wishes
spin it
I
out
would have
to
actually
play testers
tried to
en masse,
play the
because
game.
you have something that you're at least a little bit confident
Just
of
to
and
see,
sure
like,
of,
you know,
and has been tested to some degree. But I think that process I went through was so vital to my growth as a developer, my team's growth as a developer. And I look at something like this where, hey, you can't say anything really negative about this. And I believe it, because how does anyone look at some of the character designs in this game and go, yeah, like, I think we should make something that kind of inspires greatness a little bit more here, or a little less wacky and off the rails. And I get it. It's difficult because the best thing you can do as a developer is make something that you truly believe in and that you would fight for. And so it does lead to some battles internally. That's kind of the nature of creating something, is understanding that everyone wants what's best for the product and reaching a middle ground where critique can be done and you can get the best possible quality out of something. And when that's absent in AAA development, that's a scary thought. That's a scary thought, that their heads were so far up their own asses that they
That's
were
literally
like,
what it is.
PlayStation, even though it's flopping around and flailing, it is the next Star Wars, which is a pretty bold claim. I know some people thought it was
Stupid thing to say.
where Star Wars is now, but if you think about it, I would say objectively in the
Stupid
scale
thing to
and scope
say.
of Star Wars and how far-reaching it is, that's bold. But when you look at what they were setting up with that, like, Amazon TV show, which I guess they're going forward with, the weekly cutscenes for the game, they were going in on this game on a level that I don't think any of us truly comprehended, despite what we had heard about the game. So yeah, Concord as a failure is way worse than you could have ever imagined, right? Because the estimated number for all of this was 100 million. That's what people were thinking.
That's
like,
what people
it's
were
100
guessing.
million, which was already a cratering loss.
Here's where
right?
it becomes
100 million,
important.
and you refunded all the copies of the game. So you made like nothing on this. Maybe $1 million is what Colin said. That's nothing. But to have that now scale up to potentially 400 million without even considering the studio purchase is one of the greatest blunders in video game history. So
okay, so this is where it comes in to Call of Duty. So Call of Duty, let's take Black Ops 6 for example. It took 4 years of development, right? So let's just say we don't know this because they never say the development costs of Call of Duty. But let's just say that it is half the length of Concord, so that's about $200 million. Call of Duty takes $200 million to make one of their games, which I don't know if that's right, because on top of that, they have to do cutscenes for campaign, they have to make the campaign, they have to make a multiplayer, they have to design all the characters for multiplayer, and then they have to do a co-op mode, which is like zombies or something else, which generally has its own cutscenes. It might be more than $200 million per Call of Duty game. So $200 million for a Call of Duty game. That's expensive. That is very expensive. But Call of Duty sells a lot of copies. They make their money back on that. But if they put out a stinker, they are in trouble because these games, these AAA games, cost so much money. But if they release a Modern Warfare game or a Black Ops game, they have confirmed that that game will sell enough copies 100% to make up that cost of paying to make that game. It is pretty much guaranteed. Now, I truly believe that any Call of Duty game, just with the name Call of Duty they put out, will probably make up that cost anyway, but it might not. There's way, way more of a risk, and investors, Microsoft, all of these higher-ups don't want that risk. Hence why we get no new Call of Duty IPs. Hence why when something like DMZ comes out that hasn't been tested, hasn't been proven whatsoever, it doesn't get any development costs sunk into it because they don't know if it's going to be successful at all. And that's a huge, huge problem because no risk, no reward. High risk, high reward. And to build your community further, there needs to be some sort of risk to try something new. And is that Omni movement? Probably not. I don't think it's that big of a risk, but I think you see where I'm getting at and why Call of Duty has so little risk or so little variation from what Call of Duty actually is.
So hopefully it's a lesson that all developers can take a look at and take something away from it, because it is going to be a costly lesson for PlayStation. And I've already started to see people use the term Concord tax, because you got to wonder, with such a cratering blow like that, how much PlayStation wants to get the money back there. It also depends how much they have in the account. We'll talk about all of that, I guess, another time, but that's the information here on Concord. Very fascinating development. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, so fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.
Great video. Go check out Mr. Matty Plays. Great video, great description of it. I thought it was very straightforward to the point. I see some of these videos that are like an hour long. They're literally discussing the same thing. Between toxic positivity, not making any of the right decisions, a game that was probably made, if it was made 8 years ago, would have done very well, and just them forcing a game that probably wasn't going to do well out the door. You can see why it failed, and you can see why other AAA developers would be extremely, extremely worried about their own game failing, and that's why less risks are in the game development cycle as of late. At least that's what I see. So let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed, hit the like button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Peace.